Cain has just killed his brother. It's the first murder in history, according to the Bible, and God condemns him to exile. But then Cain says something that shouldn't make any sense at all. He says he's afraid that wandering the earth, whoever finds me will kill me. Stop and think. At that moment in the story, who exists in the entire world? Adam, Eve, and Cain. Abel has just died. 3 people are left alive on the whole planet, and one of them is Cain himself. So who exactly is Cain afraid of? Who are these people who could find him and kill him? The text doesn't explain. It simply moves on, as if the world were already full of people. If you appreciate history built from the sources, leave a like and subscribe. It is what allows this investigation to continue. This video will not hand you a closed answer. It will give you what the text actually says, problems it leaves open, and the solutions people built over millennia. The conclusion is yours, because the story of the first murder has a hole in it, and inside that hole fits an entire world. Let's read carefully, because the problem isn't one isolated sentence. It's several, stacked, and each one makes the last one worse. First, Cain's fear. He's afraid of being killed by people who, by the logic of the narrative, shouldn't exist yet. God doesn't answer. There's no one to kill you, Cain. God does something far stranger. He takes the fear seriously. He places a mark on Cain, the famous mark of Cain, precisely so that no one who finds him will kill him. Notice what that implies. God is protecting Cain from other people. The mark only makes sense if there are other people to see it and back away. The text, in giving the solution, confirms the problem. There are people out there. Second detail, after his exile, Cain goes to a land called Nod, east of Eden, and there, the text says, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived. His wife. Where did this woman come from? She wasn't mentioned before. She isn't named anywhere as a daughter of Adam and Eve up to this point. She simply appears, already existing, already Cain's wife. And the third detail is what closes the case. Cain has a son, and then, I quote, he built a city. A city. A person in exile, alone with a wife and a baby, builds a city. A city presupposes inhabitants, streets, houses, walls, people. You don't build a city for 3 people. Add it all up. The fear of crowds, mark against strangers, the wife out of nowhere, the full city. The text of the first murder is soaked in the presence of other people at a moment when, by the official count, there should be almost no one in the world. That's the missing detail. And it has bothered readers of the Bible for at least 2,000 years. And here it's important to understand something. This isn't an error someone recently discovered in order to attack faith. The ancient sages themselves, Jewish and Christian, saw this hole long ago, and they didn't ignore it. They worked hard to fill it. And the solutions they created are fascinating, each one revealing a different way of resolving the problem. The oldest and most common solution is the one of the sisters. The idea is simple. Adam and Eve had many other children besides Cain, Abel, and Seth. The text itself, further on, mentions that Adam had sons and daughters in the plural. So Cain's wife would be a sister or a niece. The other people would be the family that grew. In this reading, incest at the dawn of humanity wasn't a moral problem. It was a biological necessity, the only way for the species to multiply from a single couple. That solution has internal logic, but it raises an uncomfortable question, one theologians themselves acknowledge. If all of humanity descends from a single couple, then all of us would be the fruit of those first unions between siblings. It's an answer that resolves the enigma, but at the cost of an image many people would rather not face. And there's a second tradition, even more curious, that gives the wife a name. There's an ancient Jewish text written about a century before Christ called the Book of Jubilees. It didn't make it into the Hebrew Bible, but it was read and respected in various circles. And Jubilees does something remarkable. It fills the silences of Genesis with detail. According to Jubilees, Cain's wife had a name. She was called Awan, and she was a daughter of Adam and Eve, Cain's sister. The text even narrates the end of Cain's life. He is said to have died crushed by the stones of his own house, which collapsed on him. A poetic justice, since he had killed Abel with a stone. Notice what's happening here. Centuries ago, readers looked at the hole in the story and felt the same itch you feel now. And instead of leaving the void, they filled it with narrative. They gave a name to the nameless woman. They gave an end to the murderer. It's proof that this missing detail isn't a modern discovery. It's a discomfort as old as the reading of the text itself. But, and here honesty is required, the Book of Jubilees is not history. It's a later tradition, a creative attempt to solve the problem, written more than 1,000 years after the events it describes. Awan is a solution, not a recovered fact. Her name is the echo of an ancient question, not the answer that was there all along. And that's why, even with all these solutions on the table, the enigma doesn't dissolve. It only changes shape. Because there's another way, completely different, of looking at the same whole. Many modern scholars read this missing detail in a way that inverts the question. What if the whole isn't an error to be patched, but a clue about how the story was built? The reading works like this. The first chapters of Genesis may not have been written as a single, perfectly coherent chronological report. They may be the stitching together of different traditions, from different origins, joined to form a larger narrative. And in that stitching, the story of Cain and Abel may have originally been born in a context where the world was already populated, a tale that assumed a numerous humanity, and only later was fitted in right after the story of Adam and Eve, in the place where there should be only one family. In this reading, Cain's wife, the fear of crowds, and the city are not contradictions to be explained. They are the fingerprint of an older story, one that carried a world full of people with it, and kept carrying that world even after being placed at a point in the narrative where it wasn't supposed to exist yet. It's a powerful reading, and it too has its price. And it's fair to say so. It treats Genesis not as a literal historical account, but as composed literature, which many religious readers reject. It resolves the enigma, but by completely changing the nature of the text. And so you arrive at a genuine fork, two honest ways of facing the same missing detail, and they lead to very different places. So, where did Cain's wife come from, and who was he afraid of? There will be no closed answer here, not out of evasion, but because the text simply does not settle this account. Cain's fear is there. The mark against other people is there. The wife out of nowhere is there. The city full of inhabitants is there, and the text never explains any of them. On one side, the reading that preserves the story as literal. The world already had more people because Adam and Eve had many children. Cain's wife was a sister, and humanity grew through unions that, at the start, were necessary. A coherent answer, one that resolves the enigma at the cost of facing its own implications. On the other, the reading that treats the text as composition. The whole is not a flaw, it's a scar, the mark of an older story, one that always assumed a full world, being stitched into a point where that world didn't yet fit. An equally coherent answer, one that resolves the enigma at the cost of transforming what the text is. And both sides are looking at exactly the same four clues. The same fear, the same mark, the same wife, the same city. Perhaps the answer is simply that there were sisters the text didn't bother to name. Or perhaps the missing detail is a window, a crack through which we glimpse how humanity's oldest stories were really assembled, layer over layer, tradition over tradition, long before they became the book we know. What's certain is that the first murder in the Bible holds within itself an entire world the text never introduced, an invisible crowd standing just outside the story, close enough for Cain to fear it, real enough for God to protect him from it, numerous enough to fill a city, and completely absent from any explanation. This is one of those rare stories where the gap is more interesting than any filling of it. The layperson and the specialist begin from the same point, the same four clues, the same silence, the same phantom crowd, and the same private decision about what it means. The question remains open, exactly as it is. Where did Cain's wife come from? The answer, this time, is yours. The comments on this video may be worth as much as the video. Faced with the clues, which side do you take? Is the missing detail just sisters the text didn't name, or the scar of an older story, assembled layer over layer? Write sisters or stitching and explain why. If you think the analysis leaned too far either way, say so. Thank you for watching. Until the next one.